Welcome to the original International Teacher Podcast with hosts in 4 different time zones, Greg, Darian, Kent, JP, and Hannah, bringing you episodes from around the world about the best kept secret in education. You got it, international teaching. Welcome to the show. All right, everybody, this is Greg from the International Teacher Podcast. Greg, the single guy here. I don't have JP, I don't have Darian, and I'm all alone on this one. So Kent is somewhere in Seattle too, right? Anyway, I have 2 guests on. I have just briefly met them. This is Kyle and Robby, and they're coming at us from the States and Puerto Rico. So I think, Robby, you're in Puerto Rico right now. Welcome to the show, first of all, and give us a little idea of how you fit into the international scene.
Yeah, so my name's Robby. I've been an international educator since 2008. Got my start in Kazakhstan with QSI, and then went through the search associates fairs and got different jobs in the Middle East and, Africa and places like that, Asia. Long story short, I went from teacher to tech integrator to tech director. And as a tech director, I was kind of in charge of COVID and, all that distance learning and those kinds of things at the height of it. And right as COVID was ending, my contract was ending, and my wife was like, hey, we've been at this for a long time. Let's take a sabbatical year and let's move to an island, a beautiful island. So we were kind of debating between Zanzibar, Thailand, Koh Samui, and Puerto Rico. And so we ended up choosing Puerto Rico because of obviously the weather and the beach and everything, but because of Costco. Because as an international, you know how it is to be away from those comfort foods, snacks, other deals. And so it's kind of like, where can we go where we can still kind of have some comfort, but at the same time be a bit exotic? And Puerto Rico just seemed to fit the bill.
I can tell you've been teaching for a long time if Costco is how you decided to go to your 1 year sabbatical.
You know what I mean? We were like, we want to fish, we want the island. It had all the check marks, but we're like, you know what, Costco, we need it. We've been in Africa. It's hard to find good stuff. Let's just go back a little bit closer to home and keep it moving. And then Kyle,
I was wondering, as he was telling you his story, I was like, we're on the air. Is he going to say it? Is he going to tell the truth? Because he's told me now.
All right.
I was like, why'd you guys
go ahead,
Puerto Rico?
Kyle. How do you fit into this, Kyle? How do you fit in international too?
So my second international stop was in Saudi. We were at the American International School of Jeddah. And Robby and I overlapped for a year there. And oh, how the tides have turned here, because Robby used to work for me and now I work for Robby. So we've had sort of like a decade-long bromance going on, and we've always just stayed in touch, and we get together whenever we can. And it's just like, you have those people that you meet during your career that you just, for whatever reason, you just, you really click. And like Robby and I have just kind of had that synergy, I guess. So we started in Cameroon. We were in Cameroon for 2 years, and then, so my wife's a teacher as well. She was a music teacher, switched to counseling now, but then we were in Saudi for 4, and then we went to Switzerland. We were at IS Bern in Switzerland for 2 years. We probably would have stayed there for the rest of our lives, except for that my master's degree, which I had started 14 years earlier and never finished because it was not a distance learning program. I had maybe 2 classes left, and I couldn't finish them from abroad. And we were having so much fun, living abroad. There was no part of our story where we wanted to go back, but the school contacted me and said, you have to go back if you want your degree. You have to come finish it because your credits are expiring, which I didn't even know was a thing. So it is, if you're listening, credits do expire apparently. So we went back to Minnesota for a year. I finished my master's, my first master's, and then moved to Vietnam after that. We were at Ishmek in Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, so Robby and I have kind of a similar career arc in a way. Both of us started in the classroom and kind of got into educational technology and then tech leadership. Sort of circuitously. My bachelor's degree is in music. My teaching license is 512 life science. So I actually, when we decided we wanted to go overseas, my wife and I both had music degrees, and we knew there was no way we were both getting music teaching jobs. So I went back and got my science credentials, and I love biology, was really wanting to teach biology, and all I've ever taught overseas is computer science, coding, filmmaking. Like, it was all tech related because I had a technical music degree. So I was audio engineer before I became a teacher, and just really like random, routes, the things that happen in our lives are just kind of hilarious looking back on them. Like how did I end up here? And I wouldn't change it for the world. I love our story and the route we took. But if you'd have asked me when I was like 20 years old, if you'd have shown me a map of where my life was going, I wouldn't have believed it.
I still don't believe my map or my history either. I fit right between you two. I'm right alongside of you. I did homeroom teaching. I was a 5th grade teacher in Honduras, but I was the only one that would check out the one projector from the superintendent. And we're talking like 2001. And they started using an SMS, a student management system. They started using Rediker. And I was the one that was helping the tech guy put that together. I remember another teacher and I were very computer savvy compared to a lot of people. And we started putting together like student lists and stuff for the management system because they didn't know how to do it. And next thing you know, we're teaching, but we're also in charge of tech. And then there was this elusive tech director guy that was local. And from there, it just mushroomed from there for the rest. And I figured out as a single teacher, I found out that as a tech person, I had more on my resume than as a teacher. And I mean, who's going to hire a elementary teacher? Just one single guy. And I couldn't go to a job fair and get anything, but I did sell myself more as the tech savvy guy that did all this other stuff. And I'm sure, I don't know if you guys fell into it that way too, but I didn't have a degree in computer science or something like that. I was just very good at educational technology. So
I think curiosity is the secret sauce, Greg. It sounds like you probably have that gene too. But for me, like it was just, I always had my fingers in all these different pies, and I get bored easily. And I do love being a classroom teacher, and I actually miss it because I've been a tech director for the last 7 years, where I haven't been in the classroom. I'm in the classroom with teachers, but I don't have my own classroom.
Got it.
And I miss that. I miss that connection with the kids, and it's been really important for me to make sure that I have ways to stay connected with kids. It's a really important piece. I mean, that is what we are as schools. We are there to serve kids. And when you lose connection with the kids, like in leadership, I think that's dangerous. That's hard place to be. So I don't know if you guys have, sort of similar experiences with that, like getting disconnected from kids. And then
how about you, Robby? You're doing director of tech, right? You missed this classroom?
So for me, I fell in love with tech because just my core values of who I am. I love learning and I love helping people. And there's a lot of professions I could have kind of fell into, but education, I knew my freshman year of college, I wanted to do this. I got an elementary education degree, started teaching elementary school, and started in kindergarten actually. But what I learned pretty quickly is, in education, technology and edtech seemed to be something that was always on the move, always changing, always evolving. And so I was kind of naturally drawn towards that. And then as I would learn new edtech kind of, ideas or tools or whatever, I was always helping people with those tools, whether it's my team or, the division. And then I kind of knew that was my niche. And I got my master's in edtech. And then I was, on the way. I just knew this was my career path. I really wanted to be the tech guy. And I love technology because with it, you get to be kind of the rah guy. I wasn't big on like being the combatant disciplinarian or the power hungry guy or whatever. I was more like, I want to go in there. I want to like jazz staff up. I want to show them something cool. I want everyone to go, wow, that's amazing, and get everyone kind of hyped up and kind of leave them on a high note. And so when they think of me, it's always a positive, kind of fun, interesting learning moment rather than this kind of like, ego thing. And so technology was just a perfect fit for me. However, there is a bit of the dark side to tech, which is once you do get into leadership with technology, I'm not going to say there's a totem pole, but there's kind of a totem pole within senior leadership. And technology directors, a lot of times they have great ideas. They have, teaching modalities and tools and all these different things in their head that they really want to implement and showcase to teachers and, leave their mark and impact in schools. And we kind of get brushed aside. And that's kind of the complaint amongst tech directors, internally, is that we aren't being respected. We aren't being listened to. And, we're kind of pushed aside. We're there when the internet goes out and okay, everything's working. So go back in your cave. So that's kind of the bad side of being in tech. And that kind of led into the work I do now.
Well, I have 1,000 questions, but it's almost like we should just move in. You gave us a great segue. I mean, I could chime in and say I tried the tech director for 4 years, but I went back in the classroom, right?
Got it.
So where did you go? As you brought it up, so let's hit that right now. You and Kyle are both doing things together.
Yeah, so Kyle and I were just buddy tech directors. When you're a tech director, you're kind of on an island a bit. There aren't other tech directors on campus you can really talk to. So you need to keep a strong network of other tech directors in other schools just to see what's going on. And
romances.
Yeah.
Tech romances.
But Kyle was always in the Rolodex. But for me, we were just like, okay, COVID was heavy on everybody. And being a remote learning specialist and being in Africa and all those kind of things, like that was what I was kind of brought in there to do. And we did the job and it was great. And we, as soon as COVID hit, we were up and running and we were training before COVID happened and we were doing the remote learning days practice because coming from Saudi Arabia, part of that NISA virtual learning school group, that was kind of our niche. But anyways, my wife was like, I'm burned out. I've been teaching in 18 time zones for 2 years straight. Like I need a break and let's chill out. And I'm like, okay, let's choose an island. We chose Puerto Rico. And I had worked in inner city schools in San Diego. I'd worked in inner city schools in Hawaii before going internationally. And so I was figuring that, I was going to be fishing. I was going to be relaxing and I was going to be chilling out for a year and then, jumping back in the international teaching and lifestyle and it'll be, continue on my path. However, I was kind of thrown a life curveball when my kids went into the local schools. So in the local schools, I was, first it was kind of like looking at the schools and I was like, wow, these schools look very similar to Africa here in Puerto Rico. And for those who don't know, Puerto Rico is part of America. Everyone here is an American citizen. There's Costco, as I mentioned before, there's USPS, there's National Park Service. So anyone living here can live in another state like Arizona or New York or whatever. They can fly there tomorrow and get a job and vice versa, right? So everyone's an American citizen, same passport, same everything, minus the fact that you can't vote for president here, which might be a good thing. So other than that, I was expecting it to be an American education, maybe not as good as the mainland, but still comparable. And it's not. Spoiler alert, it's woefully not where it is in the States. And so when you start to look at the PISA scores and look into the data, you find that Puerto Rico scores about 4 to 5 grade levels below the lowest states, in the mainland. And then when you look at it internationally, Puerto Ricans score worse than Mexico. They score worse than Chile. They score worse than every European country, everyone in the West. And it's just the worst of the worst. Me just being a global citizen and me being a parent here in Puerto Rico, me being an American, I was just like, I've been telling kids for 20 years, be a risk taker, go out there and make a change in the world and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm looking at all these schools that look and feel like Africa that have very little to no tech in schools that these guys could use some help. I mean, there's not even public libraries here. So it's pretty wild stuff. The schools don't have libraries. There's no public libraries. Very few have computers. And so I was just like, this is insane. And so I went to my kid's school. I'm like, hey, school started like 2 days ago. And I know parents are wild, crazy people. And I'm a parent now, but I noticed you don't have a library. Can we talk about that a little bit? Would you guys be interested in, getting a library? We can possibly procure some computers for your teachers and for your classrooms. And there's this thing called Epic, 40,000 books, 50,000 books, whatever. We can start introducing books to your school. And the director was a new director, and she was just kind of like, yeah, go ahead. And so I'm like, great, what's your email? And they're like, oh, catlady69@gmail. I'm like, no, not your personal email. What's the school email? They're like, oh, no, we don't have that either. And I'm like, all right.
Wow.
And as a tech director, you're just going through the list of like, what do they have? What do they don't have? That list, that checklist. And I was like, man, there's just so many things they don't have. They didn't have an LMS, no SIS.
Were you doing this like a dad? I mean, were you on the dad?
I was a parent, yeah.
Still? Like I'm coming in going, what can I help? What do we
I was
have,
just
what
like,
we don't have?
I'm just like, as an educator, I'm seeing through the matrix. I see the school. I'm like, the campus looks bad, but maybe the teaching's good. Go in there. The teaching's not good. All the systems aren't in place. And I was like, hey, I know parents are insane sometimes, but can I help you guys? And she was just cool. And I came at her very,
Well,
modestly.
your kids are at that school too,
My
right?
kids were at that school.
So
And so
absolutely.
I went from new parent to training all staff the first month, if you can imagine that. And then, I went very quickly from training to setting up systems, getting them Google for Education, getting them Epic, getting computers for all the teachers.
Wow.
I had this little cachet of money that I had saved for a boat because I really wanted to fish, and was like this 15 years of teaching and my one sabbatical year, fish and write a book. I ended up using all the boat money to float, to buy software systems and computers and
Really?
stuff. Cool. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's one of those things. It's like everyone's an American here. You in the inner city schools, you have kids who, they come from complex backgrounds where, socially it's tough to kind of overcome your living situation. But schools that are in place, they have the building, they have the tech, they have the teachers who are getting paid, real salaries and 401ks and all that stuff. I was that poor kid. So I was a really poor kid, but school was there, and that was my sanctuary, and that's why I knew I wanted to give back. In Puerto Rico, it's the opposite, where you have great kids, great families, but the system that they're getting is broken. You have 17-year-old kids who are reading at a fourth grade level, great families, great kids, never touched a computer before, barely speak English. It's like, how are they going to compare to the contemporaries in Florida or Arizona or, New York or whatever? And so it's like these kids are getting a raw deal. America is a beautiful place because we have this thing called education, which is a rope, which helps you pull yourself out of these ruts, whether your parents were wealthy, whether your parents are poor, or anything in between. Everyone gets at least this baseline education. And I mean, we all know in this group here, after traveling to all these different countries, there's many countries out there. Like, it doesn't matter what, how hard you're working, how smart you are. If you're not the right gender, if you're not the right religion, if you're not from the right tribe, your life is pretty much screwed unless you're in the, that elite percentage of kid. And so America, we do have an equalizer. In the West, we do have this equalizer called public education. And it's just really, really bad here. And so I was like, I can't sleep. I can't think, how can I enjoy myself fishing and thinking of myself, knowing that there's all these schools that are, and all these kids, these Americans are getting ripped off. So I started helping one school, becoming the tech director of that school, essentially, not resting. And then the teachers started to talk to each other, in their local churches and stuff, like, hey, there's these gringos. They're giving us computers, they're training us, they're doing all this stuff for us. You should reach out to them and see if they'll help you. And so very quickly, I went from one school to 2 schools to 4 schools. And by the end of this, 12 months, I was like, all right, well, we got to get back to international teaching. My money's exhausted. My book is, finished or whatever. Let's get back to international teaching because I can't afford to just, serving.
You need something to give. You need to have something to give, and you've run dry. No boat.
I was a nonprofit. I, formed the nonprofit. It's called Tech My School. You can look us up, Instagram, website, all that stuff. But I'd raised like $3,000 or something like that. And it all came from one donor. She was a volunteer, just really sweet lady. She also was an international teacher. She taught in Egypt, and she just loved, our mission. And she would go with us to schools and help us and stuff. And she was great. And we didn't want to take the money. She's like, please just buy yourself groceries. But the caveat is, my wife and I were walking on the beach here, and we ran into some other expats, and, we're like, hey, how's it going? What's up? We started introducing each other, and they're like, hey, are you here for Act 60? And we're like, no, we don't know what Act 60 is. What is Act 60? And they're like, oh, well, Act 60 is America's best tax haven. So if you're an American and you lived, in the mainland, and you moved to Puerto Rico, you don't pay any taxes for fixed income. You don't pay any taxes for trading, stocks. Yep. And if you have a business, your business pays like 4% tax instead of like 40% tax. You just have to start a little company here and then outsource or export your services. And I'm like, wow, that's amazing. No, we're not here for that. And they're like, yeah, because they donate to nonprofits. And I'm like, I have a nonprofit. Where are the donations for me? And so they're like, yeah, they have to donate $10,000 a year for this nonprofits. And I'm like, that's crazy. And so I started to like kind of network for like about a month and a half, trying to get donations. And at the end of the year, we raised $273,000 from these Act 60 donors because they have to donate. It's like their way of paying taxes, and they don't.
What?
The local people really don't care who they donate to. Really, they're kind of just like, you seem like a nice guy. Yeah, you have a good story. Here's the money. You bought me a beer or whatever. And so, because they're busy, they're running companies and they're wealthy people. They don't have time to look at what all these nonprofits are doing. And so, yeah, we raised $270,000, and we're just like, all right, let's stay another year and see what happens. So we went from 4 schools to 14 schools, and the program grew, and we raised more money. We raised $1 million. And so right around this time, and I'll segue into Kyle, I was like, hey, Kyle, this whole thing's happening. And Kyle's kind of watching from afar. And I'm like, hey, let's start bringing in those international teaching things to these schools, like Week Without Walls. So let's bring Week Without Walls, where we get kids from the States who are wealthy, and they can see the disparity between what's going on in Puerto Rico and where they're at. And so Kyle at this time had just finished his tenure after COVID in Vietnam, and then took a director job in Houston at Episcopal High School. So I'll pass it on to Kyle because I don't want to monopolize this conversation.
I was thinking Kyle was one of those guys walking on the beach saying, hey, we're here for 60, but exactly, you know him from international schools. Yeah,
I was just going to tell Kyle, but he was at a great school in Houston, so I'll let Kyle kind of take over and talk about what's going on, how we connect.
I had a great job at a great school. I loved it. It was, we had a great team. It was not so different from an international school in sort of its makeup. We had a similar clientele. It was, people who were wealthier and who could afford a really great education at a private school for their kids. And my experience there was quite good, but it was really fun tracking with Robby too, because I'm an entrepreneur and I've had a few companies. And so like when you're an entrepreneur, it's hard not to sort of like watch what other people are doing. And also the connection that Robby and I had personally, it was really fun seeing, what he was doing. And we would talk every few months, and he'd, tell me about what all he was doing, and we'd bounce ideas off each other for each other's businesses. And it was a kind of a cool partnership. But early on in the time that I was there, when he first started this, he was like, well, one of the things I'm struggling with is trying to find computers. We need computers to be able to donate, so I don't have to actually spend all this money I've made from the donations on hardware, because hardware is really expensive. So I said, well, during COVID, like at Episcopal, we tried so hard to give our old computers away, and locally, it may be because of COVID somewhat, but it was this really weird, like I called e-recyclers. I called so many different companies, and they wouldn't take the computers. I was like, Robby, we've got these computers. Why don't you guys take them? And he said, great, let's do it. So we boxed everything up and put it on a pallet. And then Robby, one of the connections he has is with somebody who gets great deals on shipping. And it's not international shipping, so it's a little bit less expensive than if it were going to like the British Virgin Islands.
Absolutely.
That's close by, but is not the United States, right? So there's no like import fees and tariffs and that kind of thing. So we had a pretty good system going where at the end of the year, we would take the used machines and we would send them over there, and we would get these amazing videos back from them. Like, here are a bunch of kids where we built a computer lab, and these kids have literally never had a computer in their school. And these kids' faces just lit up, and I was like, okay, this is good work. This is like, this tugs on the heartstrings in all the right ways, And so fast forward, we've been donating computers to them for this whole, time. And as I'm talking to Robby, he's kind of describing this assessment process that he goes through with schools in Puerto Rico. And I was kind of intrigued. I was like, that sounds like a really, it's all the best practices from all of the things that we had learned in these really high performing schools that we had been in. And he had basically like kind of packaged it into a thing, like a product that he could take into a school. And he said, listen, I've not run this at a really high achieving school yet. Let's do it at your school. And he's like, I'll do it for free because you guys have given us so many computers, just as a thank you. So he came in, and I was like, in my ego, I'm like, this is cute. He has this thing he does for these underprivileged schools in Puerto Rico. What could he possibly do for a like high achieving, top 2, 3, 4 school in the state of Texas? What could we learn from him, And so he came in, and we got our team together, and he ran us through this whole process, which had a familiar ring to it, because a lot of it was based on like the, ISTE scope and sequences that we were developing when we were working together. But he had tenfold increased what he was doing with it. And after going through this, it turned out we learned so much about ourselves. we had solved a lot of problems that were really important to solve because we were well resourced. But then there were other things that had nothing to do with our resources that were like mindset issues or like just things we had never thought of before. And I thought, this is really powerful stuff. You could come into a school like this where we have literally the best people. We have the best programs. We have amazing students. We have amazing resources. And we still learned a ton about who we were and what our vision was, kind of helped to clarify our vision for tech. And you're talking about someone who is a veteran ed tech practitioner. I've been a tech director. I've been a tech integrator. I've been a tech coach. I've done all these things. And yet I was still just massively, impressed and moved by sort of what we learned about ourselves. So fast forward, we got done with that. And I told Robby, I was like, I'll quit tomorrow. What do you need from me? Like, let's go change the world. Let's go do this thing. It took us probably another year for me to get on full time, but I had been volunteering and doing stuff with him, for a long period of time with Tech My School. And there we had this sort of natural transition. I definitely took a step back in salary to be able to do it, but some other things lined up in our lives. Like my wife finally finished grad school and was now, working again. So we had a second salary. My kids are kind of graduating and moving out of the house. And
quick question.
Just lifestyle.
You mentioned that your wife finally got her like out of her degree and everything. Was she on the 14-year plan like you too? Did she?
She's going to listen to this.
I'm sorry. She's not in the room, is she?
I have to be very careful about how I frame this.
I'm digging in on you. That's all.
She's amazing. She was, it was really interesting. Sorry, little tiny buggy ride here. She is an incredible musician. She's an amazing songwriter and just a really warm person. So she was a very successful music teacher, choir director, program leader. She did all these things, had accolades. She's the one of the two of us. She's the one that has the students reaching out saying like,
you're the baggage.
Summer, remember? Yeah. Like you changed my life. And like the emails that every teacher wants, I think I've gotten like 2 of them. She's gotten like 100 of them, So she was an amazing teacher, but she never felt at home kind of that she was not trained to be a music educator. And so she had this sort of like imposter syndrome. And now what she's doing now, having a master's, she got her MSW, master's in social work. She's a hospital social work counselor right now, and is eminently qualified and very good at what she's doing. And like, it's been really fun for me to see her doing something now that is like totally right up her alley and really fulfilling for her. But anyway, yeah. So
I tell you what, this buggy ride, it fits really well because a part of what we've talked about at the ITP, what a lot of international teachers are talking about right now is what's after international. It seems like you guys have both sort of stepped out of that. I'm at an international school. I've seen 4 or 5 different countries. I've led a number of years doing it, but this is exciting because the people that are looking and those listeners, anybody else listening in that is ready to think about what's next, what's my next move after international. Yeah. This fits in perfectly.
You make a great point too. And I would say like my sort of unsolicited advice to people who are listening and thinking like, what's next? I would say that what you really need to do is, this is really funny timing because Robby just posted on LinkedIn about this idea of storytelling. Everybody has a story to tell. I think that as you develop the things that you're passionate about, to be able to figure out what are the sort of aspects or the components of my job and my life, what did I love and what did I, maybe I didn't love about the job I was doing internationally, because there are really hard things about being overseas. If you can kind of make a list of all of the sort of the pros and the cons and take all of the things that you love about it and build a story of yourself and what you want, right? And like in UBD, backwards design, we talk about, in curriculum, we talk about backwards planning, where you start with the end goal in mind. So like think 5-10 years in the future and say like, if I could be doing anything, what would it be? And the answer to that, a lot of times people have that thought and then they stop there and they're like, can't do it. It wouldn't work. It's too aspirational. And the question I would ask myself is, why not? Why not? And why not you?
Like Robby did, he's like, we're moving to Puerto Rico. We're getting a boat,
well,
right? And it goes from boat to, go ahead.
This is a good segue for Robby to tell you, basically, he did exactly that. He's like, here are all the things I loved about my job. How can I make a career out of that? So,
Robby. Well, I mean, I was, at lunchtime in my office as a tech director when I was in Jeddah. One of my fellow buddy teachers, he was the photography teacher, his name's Mehdi, and he was an English and photography teacher. And he'd come and eat lunch with me, and we, joke around, we watch dumb videos just to kind of laugh during the day. But sometimes we'd go, deeper as that happens. And we talked about like, what does your perfect day look like? And so we're like, if money's not an issue, you could do anything you want in the world. What would be like your day? Not just like, okay, go to Mount Everest and hike the mountain or whatever, but like a normal day. What does your like Monday through Friday look like? Your one Wednesday or whatever. What does that perfect day look like? And so we kind of like really were thoughtful and intentional about what that day looks like. And through that process, we came to like, okay, well, first of all, where are you living, right? It doesn't have to be a city. It could be a city, or it could just be like a temperature or climate or something like that. And so that's how we kind of drove towards Puerto Rico. I love the beach, I love islands, I love that whole tropical thing, but I like it being exotic. And then we talked about, okay, what would you do during that day? And so that was my goal, was to try to live my perfect day for a year. Like I saved up and I wanted to live my perfect day for a year. And then it just happened. This kind of project that came to me, it happened during that time. And I would just say, for anyone who's, thinking about what's next, follow your gut, follow your instincts. You could write out your perfect day and then go from there. Or you could, like, as Kyle was alluding to, write out your perfect job. Like, what are things about your job you like? What are things that you don't like? And how do you kind of push yourself towards that? Do things that you really like to do and try to avoid the things you don't. And so with Tech My School and the work we do, there's different elements as I've progressed through, from a teacher to, a coach to then an administrator. Things that I really like, things that I didn't like. And so as a teacher, I really love working with kids when they're passionate about what you're talking about, where it's hands-on, where it's fun, where they want to be there. I think every teacher loves that part of the job, right? That's the best part of the job. The worst part of the job is probably like dealing with like nasty parents or bureaucracy or gossip or homework or just monotony of doing the same thing. Those are the things I didn't like. Working with coaching, I love working with teachers. I love going in the classroom and seeing what's going on and having that connection and transferring my knowledge to them and seeing that aha moment and watching them kind of use those little strategies that you've acquired through reading books and, just practice of your own. I love that, right? But I also didn't like the lull between it. So when you're an instructional coach, it's like you'd have an appointment to be with a teacher, and then maybe you'd have a gap for a couple of days, or just that time you felt like you're being unused. Same with being a tech director. So you love the planning component, you love the training component, you love strategizing and getting in front of people and making an impact. You hate being in that office being told, hey, no, not today, or not this month, or the internet's fine, right? And so with Tech My School, this job is essentially taking the components of all those best things. So what we do is we go into a school and we do that strategic planning process where we're doing the audit, and we look at three facets of the school. We look at the educational systems, everything you can touch, buy, make, create, whatever. We then look at building capacity and staff. So what does the adult learning look like in the building? And then we look at student empowerment. What are kids actually doing? And through those three lenses, we help them create a world-class tech plan. And then we help them fulfill that tech plan through trainings, through coaching, through conferences. I used to, think it's so great to speak at conferences, and it is great to speak at conferences. And I was like, man, you know what I should do? I should, reach out to ISTE, reach out to FETC, and hopefully they'll pick me so I can talk about my story about Tech My School. And, maybe then someone will choose me. And I thought about it, I'm like, why am I doing that? I need to just make my own conference so I can get these teachers here in Puerto Rico to have a platform so they can teach, and that we can keep, really, really impacting people and get people to come to us. And so we did that. And so it's kind of taking all of the best of everything and putting it into one. And then when we work with kids, we do free after school coding with kids. So anyone in the community can come. We do the coding. We have, 6 or 8 different, robot programs we work with, KaiBots and, all of those different things, Osmo and stuff like that, Dash. And so everyone's really excited to be there. They're enthusiastic and they're on good behavior because it's free. And if they're not behaving, we can kick them out because it's free. And so it's super positive. And so we're getting all the best and very little of the work of education.
All right, let's take a moment for a little commercial about how to get in touch with us. You can, of course, find all four of us at the itpexpat.com. That's www.itpexpat.com.
Or you could also find us at email at internationalteacherpodcast@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing from you.
Or if you're into Facebook, we have a new Facebook group at www.facebook.com/groups/ITPexpat, where you can find all kinds of inside information about ITP Expat.
You can also find us on Instagram at International Teacher Podcast. This is our handle.
All right, and thank you, listeners. We have over 100 countries represented by our listeners, and though we're not monetized, we are here for you, and we would like to thank all of you for listening. So let's get back to the show. Give my compliment to you on what I just heard, and what I'd like to go back in as a techie myself. I would like to go back to the fact that when you said that you go into a school and you gave us 3 points, that you look at the structure, you look at the students, what they need, you look at the staff. In those 3 things, I never heard you say the word tech. And my compliment to you is that I think, in my personal opinion, the way that I run tech in any situation, whether it's as a teacher or a director or as a consultant or whatever, it's not about tech. It's about what you need to do with the tech. So tech is a tool, even if you're talking about a system. So what I appreciate, and I really reach out and say thank you, is that when you go into these schools, I think it's successful so far because you are focusing on those 3 things first that are not bringing up tech. It's what is your system like? What are your students like? What does your staff need, et cetera?
Correct.
Student needs, right?
And we're all teachers
maybe
first.
we can get. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kyle.
We're all teachers first. We got into tech being teachers and seeing a need and being interested, but we were not IT people who got shoved into a school, who were like, hey, let's take best practices from other industries and try and force them into education, because education operates a little bit differently. The needs are different. The users are different. I think any IT person who's been in schools for a long time will tell you, like, gosh, schools are a little strange. They're different. They operate differently than every other business. And that's really what we've found. And I think that's the piece that really gives us street cred when we go into a school and we're talking to academic leaders. I have a master's in teaching. I don't have a master's in technology, right? I was a tech director and my work experience has been in technology, but I come to you as a pedagogue. I come to you as somebody who is thinking about teaching and learning.
Teacher first. Technology is a tool. I could speak both teacher and regular person. I could speak techie. And I've always sold myself that way on a resume. I've always said to teachers and the school leaders, just like you said, Kyle, I'm somewhere in between that techie guy, that nerd, that tech nerd that's brilliant and everything, that's got all the tech stuff and breathes everything tech. But I start as a teacher, and I'm coming at you from a teacher. So the two of you, both of you that way, going into a school system and saying, here's what we got. Let's look what you have first. And we're looking at it from an educated point of view. That's so different than a technology company coming in and saying, here's what we have for you. You're saying, what do you need?
What we do in this assessment, when we go in and we're running this assessment, like doing the strategic planning, one of the pieces of it is to make sure that all the right people are in the room, the right voices are at the table. So we call it the task force, the tech task force, and we help them build that out of their people. We say, like, these are kind of the roles we're looking for to make this ideal. And they put the team together, and then we run this session together where we do a self-study, where we are there as facilitators. We do not come in and tell you what you should and shouldn't be doing, because then that would be our tech plan. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to do strategic planning that aligns with your vision and what you want. So we come in and ask hard questions. And we have the best job in the world, because sometimes they'll ask for our opinion on a certain thing if they're kind of at a standstill, or they have varied opinions about things. But by and large, we are there as data collectors. We ask some juicy question and we let them wrestle with it. And then we kind of are getting a feel for where they're at and what they think. And then they self-assess. We have a framework. They self-assess where they're at. We don't say, like, you're a 4 out of 5, no, you tell us where you're at. And some schools will assess, and we can tell. Robby and I have done this enough times where they're like, no, we're good. We're a 5 out of 5. We're top notch. We're like, tell me about this part. How are you, what evidences are you seeing of leading in the field, and they'll kind of work through it. We don't tell them they're not there. We just help them to explain to us why they are there. And then they can't, and they're like, maybe we're a 3, maybe we're in the middle. And those conversations are the money of the whole thing. But once we get done with that part, right, that's like 90 minutes, 2 hours max that we do that meeting, right? And that's that can be a game changer for an organization in terms of the way they're thinking. But then what we do is we spend a long time with whoever the IT person is, right? We have a whole sort of inventory that we need the nerds for. Like we have to know what your system profile looks like. Then we need to sit with your DTL. We need to talk about teaching and learning. We need to know what PD looks like.
That comes later. That comes after you've had that other deep conversation, because you need the tech. Yeah. I didn't mean to say we don't need that nerdy. We have to surround ourselves by the nerds, but definitely it's part of the team, and part of the process is to know the exact, not just like, oh yeah, we use some student system, or yeah, we use some email that our tech guy built for us for the school because we don't trust Google. There are definite things you have to ask, and you make a laundry list of those.
Yeah, for sure. And what that list does is a lot of times is people just don't know what they don't know, and it's not a matter of negligence as much as ignorance, right? People just didn't that was my school. There were so many things where we just hadn't thought of these things before, and it wasn't like we didn't have the capacity to complete these sort of action items we came up with. It's just that we didn't know what they were before we had somebody come in and help us to kind of see that. But this,
have you both run into that part where the school just does it because it's legacy? They always do it that way, so they've always kept doing it that way. And you sort of step back and say, why? And they're like, well, because that's the way we do it. No,
breaking
that's part of my history. Yeah. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but it was
no. What I was going to say is I was going to throw it to Robby, actually, because that whole process that we just described, like what we do with schools when we go in and we help them to go through it. Robby should tell you about the piece of software that he built that we're using now to go through this.
And let's plug this real quick too. You two are both with Tech by School. That's the company. That's a nonprofit that we're talking about for the listeners to reach out and investigate and hear more after our show, but that's techmyschool.com.
Yeah, techmyschool.org.
.org. Yes, of course, the organization.
So we're an educational nonprofit. We have the SAC 60 money, but it's finite. There's 2,000 nonprofits on the island. It's kind of a cash grab, and like I said, it's loosely oversighted. So we need other income streams to keep it going, so we can keep serving these kids. And so, being that international teacher in our past, it doesn't go away. So even if you're thinking about your next step, what's next, you don't forget about where you came from. And so thinking of Week Without Walls, thinking of, the relationships that you have, like Kyle or other educators you met, or even other schools, you don't give that up, or at least you don't have to give that up. And so we attended the NISA conferences and had booths there because we've tried to, solicit our services to schools, to international schools, to do what Kyle was talking about, this technology plan process. We call it the individual tech plan, ITP, like an IEP, but for tech plan, it's an ITP. And through that process, we're able to complete these plans and then help schools with whatever else they need on an individual basis. It's a very labor-intensive process. You have to be there. It requires a certain mind with certain experiences to be able to pull it off. And so we were actually at FETC in January, so about 1 year ago. And
what is FETC? I'm sorry,
FETC
for the
is one
listeners.
of the biggest edtech conferences in the United States. So there's ISTE.
Future of EdTech Conference.
Yeah, there's ISTE, there's FETC, there's the TCEA, it's a Texas-based one, and there's the BETT, B-E-T-T, which is the largest edtech conference in the world. It's in January as well. That's in London. Tech My School will actually be there. So anyways, we're at the conference and we're talking about, hey, random teacher, come to our conference in Puerto Rico. It's the best, educator conference in the Caribbean, beautiful beaches, 5-star resort, right on the water. Come and get your bathing suit and learn about edtech. If we run into speakers, hey, you are an amazing speaker, come be a speaker at our conference, right? So we're just kind of recruiting people. Hey, random school director, let us come and do the ITP for you. So anyone we talk to, we're looking for partnership. Another thing, a big part of our company is we would talk with other edtech companies. So, hey, Snorkel founder, we love this application, amazing stuff. We want to push it into schools. Partner with us and let's get discounts for schools so they can use your product and we can get a little bit off the top to keep us as a revenue stream. And so, and that's true. If anyone listening, if you want your school to get cheaper software, reach out to us first. We'll fight for you guys. We'll get you guys a lower price. That's just part of the deal of being a nonprofit. So anyways, so we were talking to some guy and he had his badge flipped over so we didn't see his name. And, going through the spiel, this is what we are, this is what we're doing, this is our story, we're teachers and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, man, you know what? I really love your product. I really love your process. He's like, we need that for our schools. I'm like, sounds great. We'd love to do it. He's like, yeah, I run about 1,000 schools in Southern Florida. I'm with Google. Can you go ahead and do it for 1,000 schools for us, this spring? And I'm like, no, because our team is like, 5 people or whatever. We can't do 1,000 schools.
And we need it tomorrow.
Yeah. And so we had known that we wanted to put this process into a software, but you needed that kind of brain component. And the year before I had kind of ideated the process and tried to put it into a software, but the price ticket was way too high to develop, to develop it. The AI wasn't good enough. So it was kind of spitting out a lot of junk. And so it just wasn't ready yet. And so this year we went through the process again, got a more favorable price to develop it. AI has come a long way. And so now we have this product that we've developed called TechPlan Genie that essentially takes our processes and it puts that with teams so you don't necessarily need us, where they can run through these modules. It aggregates all the data, and really the most powerful part isn't the AI. The most powerful part is the process and the conversations you're having, all the artifacts and those kind of things. And so as you're recording that data, eventually you get to the end of the modules, you can click generate tech report and it creates this beautiful editable PDF. It's a tech report. It's got all the metrics in there. It's got your scope and sequence. It's got, your professional development schedule. It's got all these different things. And so you have a editable, downloadable PDF that you can, the AI is probably going to get 90, 95% correct. And it's got all this data from your surveys and from all your different stakeholders. It's got all the your DTL and your finance and all these different people. So it's giving you like a really comprehensive, legit tech plan that's probably better than most tech plans on the market, because we went through and looked through every single tech plan that anyone's ever done ever and taken them all and made this conglomerate of just something really special, put it into this package. And then once the tech plan's there, that's kind of the start of it, because one of the things that's great about strategic planning is that process of building it. But once it's built, it kind of just sits in a drive somewhere. And you look a year later and like, oh yeah, we were supposed to do that. Or maybe you do like a semi-annual check-in. But with this TechPlan Genie, what it does is there's this module where every single month you're recording all the different things that you're doing for that tech plan. And then as the months go by, you've got this really great data. And at the end of the year, you click generate end of year report, and it gives you this beautiful editable, downloadable PDF. It's all the things that you did for the year. So you get this wonderful artifact that you can share with board members. If you're doing accreditation, it's phenomenal for accreditation, both for the plan and for the follow-through component with the end of year report. If any tech director feels not appreciated, not valued, what do you even do back there in that office? Boom, you've got this great, document, this artifact, this yearbook, you can say, of everything that you've done. And there's nothing else like it on the market. It's a one-of-one product. And so we're really, really excited about it. We just released it about a month ago. So yeah, we're hoping
good timing
that
for the podcast. We could tell people about this.
Yes. And
if you have any tech directors listening, this is like one of the things that happens to us is your boss will hit you up in like May when you're getting super busy trying to wind down for the year, and they're like, "What did you do this year? Give me a report. Generate something for me." And you're like, I'm scouring my emails and my calendar and my notes and my talking to people. This is a way where in literally 2 minutes you just click generate report, and it gives you this super polished report that has like to celebrate your wins for the year. You don't have to remember every little thing you did because you've been putting them in all year. So it's
and international schools have a lot of different profiles. So for those really high performing, let's call them tier one schools, that I'm sure we know the terminology for tier one in international teaching. For those kind of schools, you have a lot of people who may look at this like, oh, we're already great. We have all these awesome things. But as a tech director, it's nice just to have, because it's going to help streamline some things. You're going to see some things in there that, let's say, 90% of it, but that 10% you don't know. And you're like, oh, that's really cool, and I can implement this. So it's just another toy or tool in the toolbox that you can have that's just going to make your school that much better. But then there are those other schools as well where you're a principal or head of school and you don't have a tech director. You maybe have an IT guy who keeps the internet on, but that's it. But you're tasked with grappling with, AI policy, with, 5,000 applications being built every single day, teachers coming at you like, hey, can we do this? Can we buy this? And you're wondering like, okay, we have this finite budget. What are we supposed to buy? What's good? These other schools are doing this. I guess we saw that at a conference, so I guess it's good. Let's just buy that. So it really gives you this vision based off your data, based off your mission, based off of all the things you're doing in your school, to give you confidence to know that like we're buying the right things, we're training the right way, and we have a plan and a roadmap. There's also a roadmap module. We have a roadmap in place, so we're hitting our metrics and we're going in that right direction. So if you're a principal or head of school being tasked with technology, you don't feel overwhelmed or lost. You have this TechPlan Genie that helps you. And there's also a bot that's in there as well within a walled garden, which you can ask questions of like, hey, you said on October we should do this training. I've got this third grade teacher that they're really looking for this science thing. What do I do? Boom, it's going to tell you based off your data, based off your plan, how you can support that teacher at that training on a very finite level, at a very granular level, where normally you'd have to ask a tech director or tech coach that are pretty expensive to bring in, who may or may not even be knowledgeable enough to do it for that recommendation. So it's not a one size fit all, perfect tool, but there's nothing else like it, and it's really solid. So
let's hit that while the iron is hot. Let's talk about this. How the people that are listening to this, we'll put it in the show notes, but let's vocalize a little bit too. How do they get in touch with you? Is this on your website? Is it through another medium? How do they get a hold of this product and learn more about your organization?
Yeah. So Tech My School is the nonprofit, and we do lots of things at the conference. If you want to do Week with the Walls in Puerto Rico and all those kinds of things, info@techmyschool.org. Go to techmyschool.org. You can see it, Instagram, all that stuff. For this particular software with TechPlan Genie, if you just go to techplangenie.com, you'll see that website. And one of the pricing modules, strategies we're using is, most companies are to come to you and say, hey, contact us if you're interested. And then we're going to look at your school and your profile and give you a price based off your tuition and all these different things, and try to maximize and squeeze as much money as possible. Right. And so it's a bit of not a lengthy process, but it's a process. For us, what we do is we have a fixed price, $1,000 per year for the software. We feel that any school, internationally, locally, anywhere, anyone can afford $1,000 for the software that'll get you through it. However, if you want to have us to be a part of the process, we're taking our time and we're holding your hand. Either you're using us as a thought partner or we're white gloving it. We're coming to your school. We're doing the whole thing. We're running it for you. That's when you can contact us, and we can do a pricing model that will be based off of your region and your prices and tuition and all that kind of stuff in the classical way. But if you just want to try out the software and just get on it, there's a 7-day free trial, so you can just put in your credit card. It doesn't charge you. You get it for a week. You can play around with it. If you want, you can just put in like phantom data just to get to the end to see what it looks like, and then
try it out.
Try it out and be like, okay, this is what I want. And then if you want it, you can just meet with your team and go forward with it. If you don't, you just cancel, and it doesn't charge you anything. So so that's kind of the two ways. You have techmyschool.org to find the software, and then you also have TechPlan Genie, which is a software, and obviously being official partners and all that kind of stuff.
And once again, I like that. I have to say it again. The Tech Genie and Tech My School, it's teachers. It's not only, it starts with teaching. It graduates up with your history as tech directors at international schools across the world and your team of experience. Then it's tech. And it's focused on the tech too. So I think that's worth mentioning, because I always tell people that. I'm like, it has to start with education and then the tech added on to that, because the tech makes it and fine tunes it, right? Kyle
Absolutely.
looks like
There's
he has
also,
something to say.
yeah, I was going to add that there's a leadership piece here too. One of the things that, we were talking about, what happens after international teaching, what else do you do with your career and whatnot. You should be thinking about the things you want to put on your resume too. Leadership is huge, and this is a really good way. And you don't have to be a tech director to do this. This could be somebody who is a teacher, is teaching and learning, is sort of tech adjacent somehow, an integrator or whatever. If you bring in a process like this, what this software allows you to do essentially is to be a leader. You would lead a group of people through a self-study. And I think that there's an opportunity here, like with my resume, the most sort of valuable pieces of it are the things that I have led. And so if you are that tech director, for instance, or you're a person who has a job where you have these like really time bound opportunities to do things during the year, but then you have lulls where you're doing less, leverage those. Use one of those lulls where you have a little bit more free time. Maybe an administrator, you're like, there's always this couple weeks in the middle of a semester where I've got a little more time. Leverage that, hit us up, let us talk you through it. And, what we can do is help really set you up for success as a leader, to say, and the people around you, optics are important, right? And people are like, wow, this Robby guy, he's really a go-getter. He brought us this amazing process, and going through the process, we learned so much about ourselves. And they're not thinking about us. They're not thinking about Tech My School. They're thinking about you and your leadership and what you did. And that's part of what we want to do, is help to build leaders, give them a voice in this process. We've already done this literally 100 times in schools. We don't need any accolades for the process, but you might need a win. And this process can give you that. And not only that, it's a gift that keeps on giving, because once your data is in the system, you now have a living strategic plan. You don't have this thing collecting dust on a shelf. You have this process-based thing that is regenerative. You can literally go back and regenerate your plan anytime, and it takes into consideration the things you've already completed, because you're telling it what you've already done. If it had, if you had to do this one task and it was on your original plan, but then you've told the Genie that you've already completed it, it's not going to show up again. So it'll put something else aspirational in your plan.
One thing I wanted to piggyback on that is, you can also be a great leader at a great school, but one of the, I guess you can say, issues or problems with great schools is when you have really talented people who have great drive and they all want to make their big impact, is that there's sometimes internal competition that then creates silos, right? And so the DTL is doing their thing, the high school principal is doing their thing, the tech person is doing their thing. And so you're kind of operating in this way that is productive, not productive. And there's almost like some resentment and there's just some things that can come with it negatively. And so what this process does is it gets everyone in the room, and it just kind of breaks those silos and allows for people to talk about what they're doing in their particular sector of school. And really, we're asking the DTL, what's important to you this year? What are your goals this year? What are some things that you want to accomplish? And how can I support you in doing them through technology, right? And so rather than coming through and saying, hey, you need to do my thing because this is important to me, you're saying, hey, let me learn about what you're doing, and let me see how we can blend that into our tech plan so we can support you. And that's the same case with all the divisional heads, even the finance. Like, what are some of the goals? What's going on with finance? How can we help support your goals as well? So you're getting these different people in the room, and you're allowing them to just kind of take their hats off, and for everyone to work in the spirit of what's best for the school, create this kind of safe space, this nest, almost like you're in a counseling session. Like, hey, let's just take a step back and let's just talk about what's going right and what's going wrong with the school. What does everyone care about, and how can we incorporate that? So, because tech is so ubiquitous with everything within a school, whether it's security, whether it's academics, behavioral, transportation, it's everywhere, lunch. So it's like it taps into so many things, and you really want to ensure that everyone's rowing the boat in the same direction. And so this software and this process really helps with that.
I'm going to have to stop us here. I mean, I could talk for another hour, I think, but I need to really respect your time and keep this a little bit within an hour. I'm going to say I can't wait for people to go and visit your website, to go and see what's out there. even if they don't have experience in tech, if they're a leader, they could look into the Tech Genie tool that you guys have come up with. It's just come out, but it's all of this is backed up by total experience and proof in the pudding. In Houston school that Kyle was at, it transformed that school, even though it was well-run, successful school already, and what you said before. Let me tone it. I'm going to change the tone just a little bit for the ITP, the International Teacher Podcast, ITP.
There we go.
Yep. Not the IEP for technology. But I want to say I have one question. I'm going to keep it to one question, not two. Since you're both super experienced overseas teachers, I would like to know 3 things that you normally take with you when you go to a new country. And they can't have a heartbeat. So you can't say your wife and your kids. You can't say your dog. We've had a lot of those answers. But think about 3 things that make you feel at home when you move to a new country that you bring with you.
Okay, for me, I always bring my Vitamix because I'm a big smoothie guy. I also, I should say formally, I always took my football jersey of my local team. That I'm from San Diego, so that would be the Chargers. They left, so I got rid of all of them, and all I have left is my Ryan Leaf jersey as a testament to that organization. And then the third thing I like to bring is Phil's barbecue sauce.
Oh, yes, a food involved there. Some kind of sauce or makes you feel at home.
Phil's barbecue. It's San Diego's best barbecue. And so I always grab a couple bottles of Phil's.
Great
and
answers.
Even now in Puerto Rico, I got Phil's. In my cabinet. I make sure I got the Phil's.
That's
Kyle?
hilarious. This is funny because if people are listening and they haven't lived overseas, this question's so easy for international people to answer. And my list is way longer than 3, but I'll pick 3 for
That's
you.
why it's not easy, because you can only have 3.
Let me just actually say something about his Vitamix. If you ask my kids who are like college age now, if you're like, what do you remember about Robby Cobbs? They're like, his smoothies with his Vitamix. My son would show up at his house and he's
Plop
like,
it in
Robby,
there.
will you make me a smoothie? He was in like 2nd grade.
Oh, wow.
Robby's still like Uncle Smoothie to my kids. So, so I'm glad you brought your Vitamix all those years. So I would say for me, the first one's my deodorant. I'm an Old Spice guy.
Thank you very much.
I'm an Old Spice guy, and I can't
Right.
deal without it. So that's one of those weird things too. Like, I don't care if I can't get the same toothpaste or if I can't get the same, shampoo or whatever, but like, I will be doggone if I am going to use some foreign deodorant and not mine. Anyway, so that's
you
one.
Bring a whole year's worth with you,
Yeah.
or 2 years worth.
Correct.
Yep.
That was my first
The
thing
other
I
one,
was Old Spice, a year's supply.
your supply of Old Spice, yeah. And back to Costco, because that's where we get our giant packs of Old Spice. The next thing, and arguably the most important thing, which is I grew up in Texas, and I've traveled to Mexico a lot as a kid, and I am a huge fan of Tex-Mex. I love Mexican culture. It is such a part of Houston culture. Cholula, giant bottles of Cholula. We put it on everything, and you can't get it anywhere else. Or I think maybe we found it once in Switzerland, but like, I'm moving to Vietnam or Saudi Arabia, you're not finding Cholula. So, and then the third thing, oh gosh, of all the things,
Vikings tie.
yeah. So I'm glad I didn't see your Green Bay Packers things. I'm
so
Vikings
sorry
fan.
that you bleed the
Vikings
purple.
Yeah, well, we bleed a lot this year, but this is the last thing is a really interesting one, which would be our sleeping pills, over-the-counter sleeping pills, because of the travel. Because when we do long flights, I don't take these very often, but they are essential for me for the first night after a long flight. If I can get a solid 10-hour sleep, that pill kind of overrides your circadian rhythms and your body's desire to wake up. This is a super important one for me, honestly, because I'm usually like on day 2, I'm good to go. I'm gold. It doesn't matter how many time zones I changed, because you have to force your sleep rhythms to kind of get back in line. Because they say naturally it's like a day per time zone. Went to Vietnam, I was 12 time zones from home. That does not work for me, trying to spend 2 weeks adjusting. So That's a weird one. It makes me sound like a drug addict.
I love it. No, but I love that.
That's
And,
an
it
important
could
one
have
for us.
been something else like Valium or something. It's better that you're just
it's
talking about
over-the-counter
over-the-counter.
It's
No,
over-the-counter
I'm
stuff.
just saying it's not weird. It's that's fine. I do
You'll
have
be
to say,
unsurprised.
I
You'll be
do have to
unsurprised know that it's
apologize that you're
Costco.
from Minnesota, of course. I'm sorry about that. But piggyback on that, I do want to say, I wanted to ask you, have you ever heard of Borotolco? Borotolco.
No, I don't think so.
Or Borotolco. It's a deodorant that's Swiss, and it's
Okay.
like having baby powder in a roll or in a spray. It's just, it has very little scent to it. And I was going to say to you guys, I always had 3 things I need overseas, etc., and I still do. But Borotolco, after I lived in Switzerland for 3 years, I brought it with me to Saudi. I mean, I brought a suitcase, and then I went back again and bought another suitcase because I can't
Greg,
find it anywhere.
You know what that sounds like to me? That sounds
What's
like you justifying having to stop over in Switzerland every time you
Well, that's
travel
part of
near
it. That's damn part of it. You're right. You have to have a reason to go back and
We
see
do
your
this-
peeps, right?
We do the same thing. We were in Bern for 2 years, and I swear it was like living in a postcard. It was
Next time,
unbelievable.
go back and get Borotolco. It's so fantastic. And I don't know if you can get it at Costco or not because I haven't been to a Costco in like 10 years. But I tell you what, it will change your idea of Old Spice. I dare both of you to try it. You might have to order it
Look on
online.
Amazon.
I think you can get it.
I like to position myself as an open-minded person, Greg, but I would sooner root for the Packers than change away from my Old Spice.
That's why the challenge is even more important. Then I want to challenge it.
Old Spice is part of my identity at this point.
That's because of the commercials when you were younger. I know you're not. You're not.
so.
Not. Yeah.
Maybe so. Just a
Well, listen,
stupid
you guys.
consumer.
I want to give you each an opportunity to say a few last words, either what you're doing now or some advice for listeners. Why don't you go first, Robby? We haven't heard from you in a while.
Yeah, so everything we're doing is in the spirit of serving children, serving schools. We do serve schools throughout Puerto Rico. We have schools in the U.S. We have international schools that we've served, Pinewood, in Kenya. And we're looking to grow. We're looking to continue our service, to expand, and to continue to help America's most underserved, underprivileged schools. So you can support in a number of different ways. One way you can help us is just go on Instagram and follow us. The more followers, the more impact. You can go to our website and check out our services and those kind of things. And if your school is looking for an ITP or any of those kind of things, discounted software, we'd love for you guys to be a part of that. And finally, check out TechPlan Genie, or we didn't really talk about it, but Relief Roster is another one of our softwares. Check those softwares out. Be a huge help to us and hopefully a huge help to your school. So, support Tech My School, support the mission. That's the boss. I'm not the boss. Kyle's not the boss. The mission's the boss. And that's just serving kids. And, we're global citizens. So wherever those kids may be.
Thank you, Uncle Smoothie. Kyle, last minute thoughts, final thoughts?
Sure. Yeah, no, I would say the same thing I would always say to my students, which is stay curious. I think curiosity is the secret sauce in every successful educational experience, right? Like George Couros has a great quote in one of his books, in The Innovator's Mindset, that I've always kind of has stuck with me, which is that if kids are less curious when they leave us than when they got there, then we've failed them. So I think like the way that you keep kids curious is that you keep yourself curious. So like whatever your passions are, do them and let the kids see you doing them. If you love DJing, show them. If you write music, show them. Let them see you in the creative struggles in your life, and makes you more human, and it makes you better at your job because it deepens the connections with kids. So I would just say, stay curious.
I have no words after that. All I can say is this is Greg with the International Teacher Podcast. I have had Robby from Puerto Rico and Kyle from Houston, Texas. It has been a joy to talk to you both. We hope to have you back on the show at some point, and teachers need to reach out, and techies also. So thank you for being on our show.
Thank you so much for having us. Love you.
Yeah. I'm going to hit record now, and that was a practice.
Nice.
That's our other joke, right?